So last fall, social media sensation Peanut the Squirrel was unjustly and tragically ripped from his owner by New York State environmental officials and euthanized for no apparent reason whatsoever. Now, the story captivated the nation, and for good reason. It was not only sick, tragic, and wrong, it was yet another example of gross government overreach into the home of an innocent family, a family that brightened the world with their beloved pet squirrel Peanut and pet raccoon Fred. Mark Longo, the owner of Peanut the Squirrel, joins me now, and I'm so happy to talk to you. Mark, first of all, let me express my deepest condolences to Peanut and Fred. When this story broke, it bothered me. It has bothered me ever since, and I am waiting for you to get justice. Let's go back, for those who haven't heard from you in a while, to what exactly happened that day that they came and took your pets.
Tommy, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Since day one, you've been such a huge supporter. Thank you for being the voice of Peanut and Fred, and it means the world to us. October 30th was the worst day of my life. Doing my normal routine, hit the gym in the morning, and just normally feeding my horses. We have 80 horses. Nobody came from a good background. Everybody's been neglected here at Peanut's Freedom Farm. And, my wife and I moved up to upstate New York to help rescue neglected animals from bad situations. So, I was doing my daily chores and feeding my animals. And, I'm at the end of my driveway and here come 12 unmarked green SUVs. To be honest with you, it scared the hell out of me. I've never been in trouble before. I've never seen that type of manpower before. And for, 12 agents to get out of the car and serve me a criminal search warrant on a squirrel and then proceed to take apart my life for 5 hours while they falsely detain me in the corner of my driveway and treat me like a criminal. I have to live in this house ever since that tragedy. It's not easy. As you could tell from behind me, this is, Peanut's memorial room now. And, we're still looking for the answers. Why did it take so much manpower for 5 hours and a 10-month investigation on a squirrel?
I don't even
it's
know.
crazy.
I can't even figure out the justification. And I've read a lot about this, and I've seen that, like, at first it was, something about rabies, or what is the justification when they come and serve you a warrant? I assume they have to tell you why the hell that they're serving that warrant. What is, even if it's morphed, twisted, and wrong, what is the justification that they tried to give you for why all this went down?
They didn't give me one. They just sat me in the corner of my driveway. They have not responded to anything since they left my house. I had to hear through local news that they killed these animals. 3 days later, I heard from a local gentleman who called me crying to tell me that they killed the animals. They knew they told the news that they couldn't tell whether or not Peanut and Fred were alive still. And that was day 2, and they had murdered them on the first day they came here. They took apart my closet, my wife's closet, my bedroom. They didn't touch the rest of the house.
I can't. This is so bizarre, and I know that you probably don't even know yourself, but it's just, this is such an example of overreach to me. And the fact that you're in New York, that even that issue aside, I mean, I've talked about the priorities of that state being so misplaced, right? I mean, treating you like a criminal. You have an animal sanctuary. One of the most noble things that I believe a human being can do is to rescue and save animals. And they come in and they treat you like a criminal, and they take your animals. For what justification? I mean, I don't know what law you could have possibly been breaking by having an animal sanctuary and having a squirrel and a raccoon. And then they take them. I mean, I'll tell you this. If someone came in and took my chihuahua, I don't think that they would make it out the door. And I'm being honest with you. Like, there's nothing that could separate me from my animals. And I just can't imagine how traumatic this had to be for you. And then the fact that they euthanized the animals, did they give you justification for that?
No, they're claiming rabies. They're claiming a bite that didn't happen. It's crazy how much evidence they could provide, but they can't provide any photographic evidence of a bite. And there's even email evidence now that states that there are no visible penetration marks on either one of the pairs of gloves, but somehow this biologist was bit. So explain to me how somebody gets bit, but there's no puncture wounds marks in either one of the pairs of gloves.
Isn't it kind of obvious to tell if an animal has rabies, by the way?
Oh, I'd be dead.
I mean, that's what I'm like. We think that they might have rabies. They bit us. They might have rabies. It's like, I think you can pretty damn well tell if a raccoon and a squirrel have rabies. It's not one of those things where it's like, let's kill them and then maybe they might have rabies. Like, that's
Right.
so bizarre to me that their justification. Do you know who tipped them off, by the way? Do you know how all this got started? There was a lot of rumors that maybe a neighbor, somebody, some Karen did this. Do you have any idea who sparked this whole thing?
Tommy, I wish I had a clue. I don't know if it's somebody in the New York State that was not okay with us getting the donations for our animals. We have 400 animals here. We're in the business of saving animals. We don't make money doing this. We lose a lot of money doing this, but you know, it's so worth it to watch these animals grow and get back to their normal life, and be able to provide those services. So I don't know if it was, a band of sanctuaries or wildlife rehabbers who were upset that we were gathering donations for our sanctuary. I haven't a clue. But they made enough of a stir to get 12 agents, 9 of which had guns, at my house. Tommy, I asked to go to the bathroom. And I got escorted to my bathroom where the gentleman went in before I did and took apart my toilet and then sat outside the bathroom while I went to the bathroom.
What did they think you were hiding squirrels in the toilet?
Tommy, I think you would have thought I was trafficking children the way they were treating me at my house. They even asked my wife for immigration status. It's
Well, New York's
almost
a sanctuary state, so
and,
I mean
and
that would be a new one. That would be a new one if they cared about anybody's immigration status.
right,
That would be very specific to you.
yeah, and the list goes on. They wouldn't even allow me to continue to feed my animals, and then they told in their statement that they said that I was allowed to go and feed them. Why wouldn't I go feed my animals if you gave me the opportunity to go feed my animals? But it all comes down to this quote unquote rabies. If they looked at their own data, rabies in raccoons is almost non-existent as it is. There's not a case in U.S. history of a squirrel transmitting rabies. So I don't know how they came up with this rabies, story. I don't know if it's something that came up afterwards, but there's even evidence of the Department of Health in Chemung County and the DEC talking on October 22nd about killing the animals. They didn't raid my house until the 30th. So you're premeditating killing these animals on the basis of
Why would
what?
anybody want to do that? I cannot for the life of me figure out why that would benefit anybody, any corner of society, to kill 2 beloved pets who are being treated exceptionally well, who provide joy to the internet and the world, a bright spot in a very dark world. This is such a wild example of overreach. And I gotta be honest with you, Mark, I think that this might have actually played a part in the election of Donald Trump. I really do. It was so close to the election, but I remember people being like, "Okay, listen, this is such an example of government overreach here." And for a society of people who's been pushed to the brink through COVID and everything else with government tyranny, and then when you do this to especially animals, people love animals, and you do this, people are like, "This is too much for me. Like, this is enough." And I can't imagine. I know that afterwards, you're trying to mount a legal case, a lawsuit. Where are you with that? Will you get justice for Peanut and Fred? Is that possible at this point?
We're really hoping to. Yes, we are planning in the next few weeks to file our lawsuit. But it doesn't just come down to animal rights. It comes down to your own, constitutional rights. Where was my due process? Where was my First Amendment to speak out? Tell me, the first time I ever spoke out against, they told me if I didn't get out of my house, that bad things were going to happen. I've never been on the opposite side of the law, but when you're not wearing body cams and you make that kind of subtle threat, we're either going to beat you or we're going to shoot you. And you're going to comply, and it's going to be your word against 12 of ours. And if we put you on the ground, it's going to be 12 of us telling the story against you, and who's going to win that battle, but it comes down to a lot of rights being violated, both human and animals. This cannot happen again. And that's what, our movement is. That's what we continue to advocate for. This government overreach and this government power, it's got to stop. And people need to be held accountable for what happened at my house on October 30th.
Yeah, no, and nothing will bring those animals back, by the way. I mean, I think that's the thing here is that if they wanted to come in and confiscate the animals, that's bad enough. But then to euthanize the animals and not give you any reprieve, any due process, any ability to petition that grievance, that they're just like they just take it away from you. And then it's just up to you to pick up the pieces. Well, the most valuable things are already gone.
Right.
So what is now, if you wanted to move forward and you wanted to rescue another squirrel or another raccoon, are you barred from doing that? Like, where does this stand legally? What are your rights as far as being an animal rehab sanctuary?
Right. You don't know. You're afraid to quote unquote break the law again. It's crazy because regardless of whether or not you have paperwork, they could still do this. It comes down to the fact that they wanted to spend over six figures of taxpayers' money. They wanted to come here. They wanted to kill the animals. They didn't care. That's why they left my house without giving me a violation. They didn't give me an appear in court. They did nothing. They falsely arrested me in the corner of my driveway without reading me my rights. And I sat there for 5 hours while these people went through my house. They took photos of above my roof. They walked 80 acres into we have 350 acres. They walked 80 acres into my woods where I had construction workers working, and they went and spoke to them.
About the squirrel?
I haven't a clue what they spoke to my workers in the literally, a day and a half away. That's how far away you couldn't see these people. But they took it upon themselves to do a little bit of everything. I'm swear it was as if they were here for a massive drug raid or trafficking. It wasn't for a squirrel and a raccoon. That's what it didn't feel like. I could tell you that.
Do you have any reason to believe that there's some New York official that has it out for you personally? Because this feels like they're blaming it on some kind of an environmental animal control thing. This feels like this is directed towards you. And, we talk about lawfare and we talk about weaponization. This feels like that. Do you have any reason to believe that it's motivated by anything else beyond just Peanut and Fred?
Oh, 100%. I know that's my biased opinion, but, I have a social media presence. I have an OnlyFans. They tried to target me and my character because I have an OnlyFans. I created my OnlyFans page to help raise more money for the animals here. I purchased the property using the funds from my social media, and now they're trying to target my character because apparently I'm a colorful person in their eyes. So, not only did they kill these animals, but now they're targeting me as a person. Apparently I'm the devil in disguise because I have an OnlyFans page. They're trying to do what they do best, and instead of admitting guilt, poke and pry and try to find anything against me to make me look like I'm a terrible person.
Well, I would assume, I don't know you personally, but in my book, anybody who rescues and rehabilitates and provides sanctuary and comfort to animals, that's to me, the top tier human being.
I appreciate
That's just
that.
something that's very near and dear to my heart, and millions of Americans. This captivated the country. This captivated really the world. I mean, this has been talked about, and it's so important. You have my support. I hope you continue to fight. I know that I'm going to be talking about the New York Republicans that got your back, introducing a bill to make sure that this doesn't happen again. We'll be talking to one of those legislatures, and I hope that you not only get this bill in Peanut's name and legacy, but I hope that you know that there are so many people out there that got your back, that were horrified and are still horrified by this. So, your support is numerous with all Americans. The silent majority has your back. Thank you for all that you do for animals, and best of luck on your fight. We'll keep up with you because I want to know how this is going to end, and I hope that it ends with you as the victor.
I really appreciate that, Tommy. Thank you for all the love and support that you've shown since day one.
Absolutely. God bless you, and God bless the memory of Peanut and Fred, of course. Thank you so much. So New York Republicans have introduced a bill to make sure that that kind of thing never happens to another innocent animal or family again. The bill, titled Peanut's Law, the Humane Animal Protection Act, would mandate a 72-hour waiting period before the Department of Environmental Conservation can euthanize any seized animal. It would also give the animal's owners a hearing before the state takes or puts down their beloved animal. Sounds pretty reasonable to me. Joining me now is New York State Assemblyman Jake Blumencranz. All right. Thank you, by the way, for doing something about this. I know sometimes when things go viral on the internet, they have a 2-week viral time frame and then people forget about it. But this is something that is going to have a lasting legacy because New York Republicans are doing something about it. Tell me why you chose to get involved.
Tomi, first off, thank you for being an advocate and not letting this conversation end with just anger. We have been fighting to find a solution right after I saw what happened, like so many others. It was vicious, it was cruel, and it was classic New York State government overreach at the utmost here in this situation. We saw an individual like Mark, and you just spoke to him. I've been to his farm up in Chemung County. I've been on a listening tour to other sanctuaries that have been providing a place for animals who have nowhere to go. On his farm, he's got 400 animals. He's got 100 horses that were going to slaughter. And he also had a squirrel and a raccoon. He's got all kinds of different animals on that farm. All of them were at the either end stage of life, and he would still take care of them. What happened here was an atrocity. It was an overreach that no one can deny. So we wanted to come up with a solution for anyone who believes that government should never be in a place where they can do something like this with no questions asked and no answers provided. So we came up with Peanuts Law. Peanuts Law is a bill that will create a due process system so that New York won't just pretend that it's a sanctuary for members of MS-13, but when people who are actually trying to save animals, trying to do the righteous thing here in New York, we don't treat them like garbage the way that Mark and Daniela were treated on their farm. And once and for all, we can get some justice for them and make sure that Peanut's name and his impact is not in vain.
Hearing the story, and I obviously heard the anecdotes of what happened, but hearing it in detail from Mark, I mean, I'm flabbergasted. I just can't believe that this could ever happen in the United States of America, let alone over a raccoon and a squirrel. I know that you're probably not an expert in, animal protection or environmental law, but does this story seem like a normal course of events for this kind of thing to you?
Well, I'll tell you this. DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, who's policed this issue, they are the organization in New York that is supposed to protect animals, that are supposed to protect the environment. They came in here. They went in through this process that Mark had enumerated earlier, and they took the animals and immediately decapitated them. That is the process in which they went through their protocol. If that is the protocol they have in place, then the protocol needs to change. And that's what we're trying to do here, because at the end of the day, this is a crazy situation. But I have people reaching out to me from all over the state, whether it's an alligator, a raccoon, a squirrel, a deer. You're hearing situations where DEC is able to just run around, seize animals, and kill them. We don't want that to happen. DEC came out with a letter just a couple days ago saying we need to change our process. And we're just trying to codify that, make sure that people have a place where they can fight back against government overreach in the way we've seen it right here.
Yeah, I would say they need a policy and protocol overhaul. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine the resources, by the way, that went into this. I mean, you have numerous agents coming and, doing a raid as if they're doing like a cartel bust. This is wild beyond belief. And I can't imagine the pain and the hurt that it's got to be for someone to lose their animal and then the animal's just euthanized. There's no due process there. Once you kill the animal, that animal's gone.
Not just no due process, there is a lack of priorities of this administration, of the people who are in charge here in New York. This is where they send dozens of agents, they send drones, they send, enforcement. But when we're dealing with a crime crisis downstate here in New York, across the state, they want to look the other way. They want to say we need a compassionate solution. They want to give all the due process in the world to someone who's not from here. But in instances where someone's trying to save animals, they're being treated like cold hard criminals.
Do we have Democrats that are supporting this? Because, in my experience, Democrats, liberals, the one thing that unites both parties is a love for animals. And in fact, liberals might even say that they have more of a love for animals in some certain circumstances. So is this something that could be bipartisan?
It absolutely is. And the goal here and the work you've done in your animal advocacy and the way you have raised this story up have led us to a place where Democrats cannot sit down and not pay attention. It is the work of you and journalists around the country who have made sure Democrats here in New York cannot sit there and lock their doors and make sure that advocates can't come and talk to them and speak about this issue, because we've heard from people around the country. Right now, we're dealing with the budget, and all people's phones are going off the hook saying we need to pass Peanuts law. And right now, we're sitting at the table. We have a Democrat who picked up the bill in the Senate. We're going to get it passed in the Senate. We have Democrats on our bill in the Assembly. And you got to work together, because animal rights and animal welfare are not a partisan issue. And we need to be loud and clear that this was not okay. Government overreach in this capacity is not okay, and we need to fight back.
Yeah. Where is Governor Kathy Hochul on this issue? Do we know?
Well, originally, she was radio silent, but because of our work here over the past few weeks since we introduced the bill, we are actually in conversation. We're looking forward to those conversations continuing, and we want to see a solution. No matter what, I don't care who wants to come onto the bill, what your background is, whether you're a socialist or a conservative, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. Believe it or not, we got the whole spectrum in New York. I want to make sure everybody comes onto this bill, and so we change the law for the better, for Peanut, for Fred, for the Longos, because we need to see a change.
Absolutely. And for some people, this seems like such small potatoes, small peanuts, if you will, but it's really not. When you think about this happening and what this family has gone through, and I'm sure countless others have gone through, maybe they don't have the same social media presence, so they're not able to amplify it the way this family was able to. But this is just so egregious, and it's heartbreaking, and it's tragic. And I'm happy to hear that this is bipartisan, and I'm happy to hear that this is likely going to get across the finish line. It's not a small thing, and especially when it's your pet or it's your animal or it's your sanctuary, it's a big thing. In fact, it's the whole world. So I'm so happy to hear that this is picking up steam and that this has become a priority, because it should. In terms of what we can do to make this family whole, I know that there's going to be a lawsuit, and that's going to be a matter for that family, the Longo family, to deal with. But is there anything that can be done to make them whole again, outside of being able to bring these animals back, which cannot happen? Is there anything that can be done from a state perspective to right this wrong?
Well, to the New Yorkers out there who want to help the Longos, you can reach out to your legislator in New York or in other states. We've had multiple other state legislators in other states reach out to us we'll look at our model legislation to make changes around the country. So this can't happen to animals anywhere. Yeah. Reach out to your sanctuaries, give to either any sanctuary in your area who's helping animals who have nowhere else to go, and make sure that you just be good to animals, be good to people, and let's make sure that our laws reflect that as well.
The legacy will live on. Thank you for taking up this fight and for speaking out about it. It's so important. Best of luck to you, Assemblyman in New York, fighting all the battles you have to fight. This might be one of the easier ones, which is what I'm happy to hear, but I know you've got many ahead of you. So thank you so much for your time. God bless Peanut. God bless Fred. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's get it done.
Get it done. All right, folks, I'm an animal lover, and people who rescue animals, people who have love, compassion, and care for animals, they are, like I said, they are top tier human beings. So I hope that every state will adopt a form of Peanuts law so that this doesn't happen. This is an example of tyranny, government overreach. You all probably felt it in your life one way or another. So this is the time to take a stand. And Republicans and Democrats, let's join in on this. Thank you guys so much for watching this very special episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Of course, I'll see you here Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can watch the show on Outkick.com, on Fox Nation, Fox News Digital, of course, across social media platforms. And you can follow, like, and subscribe the YouTube page at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. That's going to do it for me from Nashville. God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.